This is Zettelcast, brought to you by readers, writers, thinkers, and teachers from LiLLiPub, along with our partners in thought, our Zettelcastans. In this show, we share discoveries that our Zettelcastans have shown us.
There you go.
And compare notes on how we're using this marvelous invention in our creative work. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Book. Let's do it again.
All right.
Episode 94, Linkage. Welcome, everyone, to episode 94 of the Zettelcast. And I'm your host this time, Julianne Scherer. And this is going to be pretty Roanoke related. We've amassed enough individual parts that it's possible to kind of take a bird's eye view and start to see where some things might fill in. And so the first thing that I aimed for in that is, let's fill in the individual character's experience with the link a little more. Everybody has experienced the link, except for, I don't think Javi has. Javi's been...
Javi's experience with the link is that his community really only uses it very sporadically, just for like data lookup sorts of things.
Yeah,
So
and we haven't had occasion.
Yeah, but he doesn't really like it. He doesn't know how, so he avoids it.
Right. So the kind of writing prompt that I gave my co-authors was really about getting a little more down into the experience of this link and not confining it to things that are so close to what we do today. Mm-hmm. Although you might build on things that we do today, but not so one for one. And so, yes, they have conversations with the link, but we can all talk. They can talk. So that's why would they do that, right? So it's as a reader, I would wonder why they have this thing in their heads if they're just using it the same way we can talk. The same with the kind of things that we can do with a smartphone in our hands. Easy access to an internet type thing. Yes, they're going to be able to do that. Going to look this up. They're going to issue this command. And it's probably going to feel a little different, but it's still the same thing, right? Not that you could just like talk into your smartphone. You could get real fancy and make things happen. So beyond that, how do we justify on behalf of the people who set up this world why there's this thing in their heads? So that was just an open-ended assignment to my very busy co-authors, some of whom were able to work some writing in, some sketched, a little bit of in between. It's an exploration. I did a crap ton of writing.
Yay!
So this is a sample size of one with the whole practice of deep outlining. I wrote a deep outline of a scene I have been mulling over for months. Mm-hmm. And there's a big piece that is still to come, and I don't know how that's going to go, but I knew I've got enough in there. And so I did a deep outline of it. The deep outline was about 1,000 words. It's a kind of a set piece. And so far I'm at 3,237 words. Mm. And it felt phenomenal. So this whole process of deep outlining, I discovered so many things of the story during the deep outlining. There was really only one little bit that when I got to drafting everything that I realized, this is a great opportunity to edge that in. But every other discovery, and there were a bunch, came through the deep outlining, and I haven't gone through a week of writing 3,000 words of a draft plus 1,000 words of a deep outline ever.
Mhm.
So I'm liking it. Liking it. All right.
Yeah.
So depending on how much time we have, that depends on how much I will read. But anyway, who would like to go first?
I
Okay.
can. It's
Okay.
mine short.
Okay.
So well, no, because they're not privy to that. So during our last author call, which you guys don't get to see, it's secret. It's our super secret society. I finally started to be able to get some traction with how my character fits into the world and what that arc and continuity looks like. So for me, much in the way that Julianne's process is revealing how her outline and how that process has unfolded and kind of unlocked the writing piece. I generally like to start with what I call character notes. And these are thoughts that I'm thinking to help me understand how a character might think or look at a particular thing. So that's what I shared, is I shared some notes as I'm trying to get a handle on, during this particular period of time in the story, what is my character thinking about? How might she be thinking about it? It just helps me get into that mindset so that I can start to unlock that character's voice. That's what leads me to the writing of it. So what I shared, I just called them Margaret's notes because in my mind, the scene is still a little slippery for what's actually going on. But what I think she's doing is, and I can't say too much because I don't want to get into spoiler land, but she is situated at such a place and time in the story that she's looking around at reality and the world that she's in and asking questions about how things interact and function and what that might look like in the future, particularly because she has kind of a scientific mind and is thinking about things from that perspective. Welcome, Deb. Hello.
Welcome, Deb.
I made it. Yes.
Yay.
Thank you.
So
Who has a scientific mind?
It's Margaret. I was just introducing how a way into a character for me is to just start sketching out notes kind of from their point of view, which helps me find their voice. So what I've shared are some notes that fit that criteria. Yeah. So as I started thinking about
one little pause, just for Deb. Mm-hmm. We are recording.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, yeah. So here's where my thoughts started. And this is Margaret asking the questions. What is the nature of our knowing or gnosis, more of a deep knowing about this world that we're in, that we find ourselves interacting in? How do we best access the communications architecture that bridges the gap between thought and mutual understanding? And this is speaking directly to the question that Julianne asked for this episode, which is, how does this link thing function beyond just a cell phone or the internet or whatever? So early on, Margaret's asking this question about how do our comms bridge that gap? And then she's thinking about brainwaves and mental models and moving thought data. And how is that impacted by the game model? Because we know that there is this aspect of gamification going on that's been set up by those who came before. And then her question is, what needs to be tested? Not only internally in terms of the communications, but in terms of the people to follow. Like, what does that need to look like? These are things that she knows and is thinking about. Then what is the fail-safe for a malfunction? Is there a shutdown protocol? Are there malfunctions? And then the question arises kind of canary in the coal mine style, can we unring a bell? Because she's already thinking as kind of a red team member, looking at what could go wrong, how can things go wrong, can things be fixed, can we undo what we've done, or is there even a reason that we would want to? So that's more of a philosophical look at how she's experiencing what's going on. And then she's particularly thinking about the shutdown protocol because in the scene that I shared a couple of weeks ago, where she gets this message from someone who has expired, shall we say, that's part of a shutdown protocol. So this is kind of thinking back to the backstory that would establish what that looks like. Then the fabric of time versus communication, and that brings into question the idea of, is time and the way that we link and think necessarily tied together, or can those things be more slippery? Is there a real-time transfer of knowledge, and how much runway is needed to properly use it? We don't know at this point. And then again, what questions need to be asked, because she's always thinking in terms of what do we need to be asking and what does the game need to be asking in order to make discoveries. That leads to addressing data gaps. And this piece is really exciting. It's a piece that I feel gives me some real legs into the story because, and this is actually a real thing in data. What happens when data goes missing? So data appears in real time, say from the system, from the link, from something that's being managed or monitored. And then the next step is data goes missing. And that's not explainable. But then the next data that is reported or collected retrocorrects for the fact that there's a missing piece. This is a real physics concept. And so I'm thinking these are things that she would know.
Yeah.
And so in terms of how the link functions and how people use it, she's already thinking, she knows that this kind of retro correction happens when data is either corrupted or missing. And she's already thinking one of the most valuable utilities of the link is it's going to correct for that. Like it's the link saying, it's okay, I've got you, you're good. So then she's asking, is this part of the game? If information or data goes missing, what if it's not corrected for? Then is that something that you have to kind of consciously process into in order to figure that out? I mean, look at the way that like Teresita is learning language, or, you know, the ways that people are learning to communicate with each other. The way that Bala has transmitted information and kind of, you know, went past Teresita because she's like, wait, he's not here. This is different. So these are the kinds of things that are being parsed out very early on. Then is it a malfunction of the link environment, or is it an unexpected gift with a suspicion that we're being helped? Maybe we know it, maybe we don't, but there's a suspicion that we're being helped and taken care of in a way that nothing bad is going to happen. And then her final question is, what is the methodology for upgrades or maintenance? Does the link ever shut down? What happens if it gets shut down? Or again, if there's some kind of disconnect? And then what's the user experience of that? You know, if you're without your cell phone for a day, you have a particular experience. Well, we know we have characters, you know, like Javi and his people who they function perfectly fine without it. But for somebody like Jenna,
yeah,
what is her experience of that? It's a little freaky deaky.
Yeah.
So she's always asking the question, which is, I need to test this on myself, because what came out of our author meeting was the reason that Margaret has ended up in the state that she's in is, you know, it's like the mad scientist injecting themselves first with all of the things and then writing out what happens. She is going to self-experiment through a lot of this, which will allow her to be a character who, when something is needed to be revealed or something is needed to be shared, she will be the one who knows those things. So it's mighty convenient that we have her kind of floating out there with all this
In that
stuff
way.
that she may or may not remember in the moment, but
Yes.
she'll remember what's important. So that's where I am.
Woo!
Mhm.
Finally, V gets in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a whole steer on that plate.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I can't wait. Just give me a fork. I can't wait.
Okay. Who would like to go next?
Well, I can follow that, maybe. So, um, the thing with the deep outline is really interesting because I've been calling it zero drafting, and perhaps my use of that term is idiosyncratic. I'm not sure, but it's basically something that I've been doing all along is telling the story before showing the story, writing down the basics of what I expect to happen and why, and some details, and working out how a scene is going to go and doing the discovery at that point. There's still more discovery to happen when I actually expand a scene into a real actual prose scene. But it's very interesting this concept of the deep outline because I hadn't really considered doing it systematically, which is what the outline uh, suggests to do. With that said, I spent some time not even quite at that level, but just writing down some thoughts this weekend of this challenge of how can the characters use the link or something like the link to in a way that is different from what we have access to now. And as we've already mentioned, Javi was not the right character to explore this with, at least not yet. But my other character, Rosemary, she has grown up with basically a separate clone of the link, which I'm calling the sandbox. So it's not fully functional. It doesn't have everything that the link has, but it has a lot of the same capability. And Rosemary is all about collecting data and collecting information to hatch her plans, which I'm not sure how much I can talk about, so we'll just set that aside. Uh, so what I'm imagining and what I want to do when I actually write this scene or scenes is that Rosemary uses her sandbox as a way to organize and explore this data that she has collected. In other words, this sandbox has programmed into it helps for discursive meditation to make it externalized. And also the memory um, memory images, memory structures that I've been talking about recently in my newsletters. I can imagine having this externalized playground where you can imagine, instead of just imagining walking through your data, it's a much more like a virtual reality sort of experience. And actually looking around and seeing, oh, there's a connection here because these two trees have a vine between them or something. And one of the things that I could see the link being, or the sandbox in this case, since there is a kind of intelligence to it, it would point out things that she wouldn't necessarily have noticed in by herself. So it would become a collaborator in this whole process of working through the data and understanding the connections. And I happened to stumble across an article, an academic article from the late 1990s called The Extended Mind. which talks about it establishes the first ways of talking about how things like writing on paper can be an act of cognition, and it extends your mind. Another example that they give is the process, if you're playing Scrabble, the process of moving the letters around on your little letter holder in order to better see and come up with words. And so that whole process of moving the letters around is cognition, and it's taking place outside of your mind, and your mind is connecting with it. So it was a pretty short paper. It's very readable. It's not super dense academic. And there is an entire book, which I have not yet read, by another author going along those same concepts. But what I'm taking from this is that the link or the sandbox is an example of an extended mind into, the whole of the planet potentially and beyond. So that's where my my noodlings took me this weekend.
Ah, another great steer on the plate.
Yes.
Or for Kathleen, it's a table full of eggplants and whatever.
A lovely seared portobello mushroom.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh, I can't wait to read this stuff.
Mhm.
Super. Okay. Kathleen or Deb, who'd like to go first?
I have something, but I think it's too long, which is a kind of a first for me, and it doesn't quite go along with your prompt.
Okay.
Because every time I try to think in terms of Lydia and the link, I just went around and around and around in circles.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I did.
Yeah.
But then it occurred to me, well, what would happen if on good old planet Earth, all of a sudden we woke up and we had Yi and Dao. We woke up and we heard all of these voices in our heads. We and what would happen? What would change? And so that's where I went.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's the theory of it is we're on Earth. What changes?
Okay.
What changes?
Yeah.
So I can do, this thing with it's not a story, it's a kind of a essay, kind of documentary, kind of report.
Okay.
That talks about the changes. So I'm not going to read the whole thing because it is 15 pages.
Woo.
So I'm going to try to think in terms of reading just the first couple of paragraphs of each one of the little sections that I have.
Okay.
So that'll, shrink it down to something reasonable. Okay, so it's called The Morning of Yi and Dao. When humanity woke into the shared mind, the first fact was terror. Not because everybody suddenly knew everything. That was the first misconception. People imagined a universal scream. All secrets exposed, every shame, desire, lie, resentment, fantasy, memory, and prayer flung into common air. That did not happen. What happened was stranger, subtler, and in the end, more transformative. Human beings became aware that mind had two doors. The first door became known as Yi. Yi was the public mind, the field of shared intentions, common awareness, social presence, broadcastable thought. It was not speech, exactly. It was closer to standing in a room with everybody and knowing the emotional weather, the declared meaning, the shared focus, the agreed upon facts, the tone beneath the words. The second door became known as Tao. Tao was private, intimate, invitation only. A person could open Tao to one other person or a defined circle or a defined purpose. Marriage vows, medical confession, priestly counsel, artistic collaboration, criminal testimony, deep teaching, grief, and love eventually moved there. Thou became sacred because it was not automatic. It had to be granted. The great relief of civilization came when people learned this. Privacy had not vanished. Privacy had become architectural. The self now had rooms. The old world had treated privacy as a wall. The new world treated privacy as a door with locks, permissions, rituals, and ethics. Okay, now, should I keep going with that or jump to the parts?
Having not seen what you wrote, it's hard to know.
Yeah, that's hard to know, right? Okay, the self now had rooms. At first, millions believed the shared mind was demonic, technological, alien, apocalyptic. Governments collapsed in some places, not because laws failed, but because legitimacy failed. People could feel institutional fear. They could feel leaders pretending certainty. They could feel panic underneath official language. The first new authorities were not politicians, scientists, or clergy, although all three still mattered. The first true guides were the people who could perceive the structure of the gift. They were not mind readers, they were interpreters. Some called them clarifiers, some called them threshold teachers. In religious communities, they were called witnesses. In universities, eventually, they became the founders of noetics, the discipline of shared cognition. Their first teaching saved the world. Ye is not your naked soul. Ye is your civic surface. Thou is not mind control. Thou is chosen communion. Once people understood that, the world didn't become simple, but it became livable. And then I start jumping into things like daily communication, the daily news, lying,
Wow.
promises and contracts, office work, education, worship, libraries, entertainment, professional writing, friendship, marriage, mechanical expertise, the PhD, the underclass, prison, trust. And at the end, what society became. Maybe I'll skip to that one. Oh no, let me just do this, the cell phone. The cell phone. Better and worse than the cell phone. The shared mind was often compared to the cell phone, but the comparison was inadequate. The cell phone connected people externally. Ye connected people internally. The cell phone made everybody reachable. Ye made everybody ambiently present. The cell phone damaged attention through interruption. Ye threatened attention through permeability. The cell phone created social media. Ye created social weather. The cell phone turned private life into content. Ye turned public life into felt participation. So I'll skip to the end where I have what society became. After 200 years, humanity was neither saved nor ruined. Cities became quieter. Homes had threshold rooms. Schools taught mind manners. Weddings included privacy vows. Courts examined alignment. Libraries guarded silence. Offices became consent architectures. Art became more intimate and more protected. Religion became both deeper and more dangerous. Politics became less able to hide fear, but more skilled at manipulating shared emotions. The human being did not become a hive creature. The human being became a house with windows, doors, curtains, locks, porches, guest rooms, public rooms, secret rooms, and sanctuaries. The old moral question had been, what do you do when no one is watching? The new moral question became, how do you behave when everybody can feel the shape of your presence, but not the whole of your soul? Civilization survived because privacy survived. Civilization changed because privacy was no longer assumed. It had to be practiced. The gift was not that humanity became one mind. The gift was that humanity finally had to learn what a mind is for. A mind was for meaning, and meaning, people eventually learn, travels best through chosen doors. So, yeah,
Super.
yeah.
I've got a lot of thoughts about how that might get incorporated into the whole book. We have lots of choices.
Yeah.
And that is probably best as a author call discussion.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got us teed up.
And how?
Thank you. You said when I did the poll, who can write, who wants to write? And I gave an option. And you said, yeah, let's go. But then you had a little comment, if you don't mind my sharing, said, it's probably going to be shorter than my usual.
Maybe that's what gave me permission to go long.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. Well, thank you, Deb.
Mm.
Kathleen.
Okay. Well, mine I wrote a scene that it fills in the background information on Teresita, and it answers some questions about how it was that Teresita came to understand how to make a Bezier belt, and fills in a little bit about just before that first visit to the build-up, where she first gets her hands on real bast, and it happens through the link, and it also involves Rosemary, so it's probably going to need a little bit of a rewrite because Rosemary has a say in what Rosemary says, and I've just put words in her mouth, and that's not fully kosher. So we'll give Rosemary a chance to say, no, I didn't say it that way. This is what I said. But here's a draft. Okay, so here we go. Called Teresita Uses Her Link. Teresita had burbled nonstop into her link in full-throated ye from the moment she had been supplied with one. Anyone in her vicinity had long ago learned to tune her out, literally. As a consequence, as has already been reported in this tale, the first she heard anything from the link was exactly 30 days after being connected, when Sis Cleanup began advising her that her unremarked transmissions were set for deletion. She was invited to select any from the trash heap that she especially wanted to keep. It was there that she encountered Sis Cleanup for the second time, or at least she thought she did. She actually encountered Rosemary pretending to be Sis Cleanup. And it was Rosemary who showed her how to have a look around the trash heap beyond her own personal discards. Who knows why Rosemary chose to direct Teresita to the mountain of discarded recordings of Bala's nonstop burbling, but Bala's made deep sense. His musings were highly repetitive, that could not be denied, but they were anything but rubbish. Furthermore, the repetition was just what Teresita needed to begin to comprehend language. It was fascinating enough when it covered nothing more than Bala's daily hours spent caring for the hydroponic gardens. But when Bala's father showed him how to make a Bezier belt, the recordings could be sorted into a timeline sequence with pretty good accuracy. Then when Rosemary taught her how to read the timestamp, Teresita had a revelation. And it wasn't that a few random episodes were out of order. The key thing Teresita noticed was that some of the recordings were missing. Well, they weren't thrown away. The ones that are missing are the ones they kept, Rosemary explained. Thrown away? Who would throw Bala away? That was a challenge, but with Rosemary's patient telling and retelling, Teresita finally managed to separate her mental image of the person from the recording. And based on the timestamp, these recordings were several years old. But the cuttings were discarded only recently. Teresita caught on to the discrepancy almost immediately, but could not fathom its primary implication. In real life, Bala is several years older than he appears. But by that point, Rosemary and Teresita had drifted onto different puzzles, and Rosemary signed off. Teresita didn't realize that she had checked out, and so she inquired where she might find a specific piece that was missing from Bala's narrative on the Bezier belt. Since Rosemary wasn't there to intercept the inquiry, it went straight through to Teresita's link. It was the first time she asked her link a question. Since she had provided a specific timestamp, her link responded by playing the segment she requested. It did not occur to Teresita to wonder how the source of the segment differed from the ones she had been watching from the trash heap. She simply played the segments in order, stopping to ask her link for any that were missing from the discard pile. Again and again, she watched the episodes on the belt. She loved that sequence more than any of Bala's other musings. She became quite skilled at requesting segments, being able to replay any at will, and quickly returning to her favorite moments. It was a strange mixture of raw system calls and high-level link requests. Teresita used them interchangeably and failed to notice the difference. So, of course, when her sister took her to the first build-up and suggested she sit under Jinx, Teresita chose to entertain herself with her favorite Bala show.
I love that, and I have a but.
Okay.
as a reader and a fan of Teresita so far, I'm wondering why so much discovery is in the past tense. Why
Oh,
can't we be there?
oh, it could be written for so that we're there. Why
Yeah,
not?
it's gonna be 3 times longer to show
Yeah.
it rather than tell it, but I think it deserves that.
Okay.
You've already shown you can do that with Teresita, and
Yeah.
it's super
It,
meaningful. And she's, I would much rather hear from her about her discoveries and
yeah.
Rosemary discovering who this is that she's interacting with than this know-it-all narrator.
Okay. Oh,
I
I will
agree.
take on that challenge. That would be fun. Of course, as you said, it will expand
Yeah,
because Teresita is, discovers things slowly.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
I
having
agree.
read this, I was so pleased that you were able to get this onto LiLLiPub so I could read it. And these thoughts happened by percolating overnight, so it was great. And I have a question for Victoria on the I'm forgetting the thing, the kind of the sort of edit that you're in the middle of doing for your novel. What's it called?
Developmental.
Developmental. So
Hmm.
is rewrite this in as present tense discovery, just a note to do that later for anything that we write. Um,
Hmm.
do you consider that to be the sort of thing that it's not a terrible thing to save for your future self as part of the developmental edit, or is it better to get in there with get your elbows dirty?
I would say, based on my experience, it's much easier to do it. It's okay to assign it to your future self, but not your future developmental edit self. Because for the developmental edit, really, all the pieces need to be written. That edit is just going through and making sure that the pieces are all in the right order, that
Mhm.
the information, the discoveries, the revelations happen in the way you want them to happen, and that there aren't any gaping holes. So I would say this kind of assignment, if you will, needs to be done sooner rather than later because you want to do the rewrite while the write is still fresh in your mind and not too far away.
Mhm.
Um, with that said, I would give it a little time, because you're shifting gears. So I
Yeah.
would let this piece sit like maybe for a week or, however feels right. And then, do kind of come at it clean from the new direction and draft it out. Now, maybe you create that draft and stick a pin in that, tuck it into the plot box or tuck it into the time box where you kind of think it happens and then do the sorting of it later, and kind of clean up. But
Yeah.
um yeah, in order to do a proper developmental edit, and I'm speaking from experience because I did not do this and I'm finding I hate past me. We're having a real slugfest right now because present me, who's now moving all the pieces around and making sure that everything connects, gets really hacked off when I have to stop and draft a scene or something that past me said, oh, you can do this later. I don't want to do that now. I just want to be in the finishing, I can see the finish line and be putting it all together and wrapping it up. I don't want to have to be going back to the drawing board cold. So that's my experience.
Mhm.
Wow. Super. Yeah.
And and if I can interject here, then in
Yeah.
retrospect, what I'm saying with mine is that what I really wrote and did not realize it was a deep outline.
Yeah.
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 It felt like that. It felt like that was the roadmap for the scene that you're going to write rather than the actual scene itself. That's how it felt. So, yeah,
Yeah.
the bones are strong.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That thing that Mel said is like, before I draft, I basically tell and then I move to show.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, absolutely, the bones are there. I can't wait to meet the fleshy the fleshy fiction. Okay. So I'm not going to read my whole thing. It's as I said, it's um 3,200 words. So what I'm going to do is I've got 5 different instances of Link in this one story called What's, and I'll skip around to the various instances, and then we might, because this is the Zettelcast, there is a thing that I added over the weekend that is kind of Zettelcast and fever dream. So depending on time, we could do that as a bonus or however we want to do it. But I'm going to start with something very pedestrian, and that is I've already shared something like this in another scene, but I'm repeating it, and that is so we've got Jenna and her father Malcolm who are going to this store, Watts, because she's in the effigy contest and she can't use her link in the way that she's used to, and she's going to get a Zettelcast in, and Malcolm, her father, is all for that. And so there are mostly 4 people in this scene as it all plays out. There are other people who chime in, but it's Malcolm and Jenna, and then it's Reggie Watt, who is the proprietor of Watts, and his grown son, Ronnie, who's a little older than Jenna. So anyway, Malcolm and Jenna arrive on a Monday morning, bright and early, and they're standing outside the shop. And in order to join the Yi, they do something that's just like what we do when we go into a restaurant and it says, join our Wi-Fi, and they give you the password and blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing, but it's a different mechanism. And what it is that if you look at the store's awning, it'll say Yi something, and sometimes it says Ye old. It's just a Ye that matters. And very subtly, every kid learns how to do this when they're old enough to go shopping with mom and dad. You just sort of with your eyes trace the Ye, and what you end up with is you're in the Ye of the store.
Nice.
So we did that in another one, but that's just a protocol that's right there. So you could do it with your phone and a QR code, right? But you got it in your head, so it's like that. All right, the second one is I'll just do this. So Jenna is going to be borrowing her mother's old watch.
Right.
And that's because Jenna has utterly relied on Eleanor, her link, to keep time for her.
Right.
To the extent that this phrase called, in the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. She doesn't have the sense of how long 15 minutes is that we all do, who, are kind of clock driven. So that's going to happen. Again, it's the sort of thing you could have, and she's going to be using a watch like mine. You can kind of program it with the help of the link, but it's not deep. All right, next. This is where I'm inventing some technology called the inker. So she's talking with Ronnie, who is showing her a Zettelkasten kit. And he pulls out a handful of cards from the kit, and some of them are plain white, lined, gridded, lined but turquoise, gridded but yellow. And he says, this kit gets you started with 200 cards. They come plain white in the pack. He looks up at Jenna. Do you have access to an inker? Yes, we've got one at home. Great. He gestures his head toward the nearest side wall, says, if you ever need, ours is free to use too. Then he places his index finger on the fresh cards pack, just above a small symbol on the paper wrapping. Our cards all work with an inker. You can get standard designs from this code. Do whatever else you want too, of course. Gotcha. All right, so that's the inker. And this is part of my Zettelcast and fever dream, right? Having to buy a bunch of cards that you won't use for years because you want a few and you don't want to run out and all of that. And it's because, well, sometimes I want the lines. Sometimes I want the colors. Sometimes I want the grids. Sometimes I don't want any of that. So an inker is a multi-purpose tool. And it's, it makes sense that she's got one at home, that they use one. Okay. So that's the inker. It's going to show up again. But book blanks. So our friend Kathleen is going to have many, many books behind her. I have a bunch of books. I have thousands of books in the room and I never let you see. My husband is currently going through a bunch of books that were extremely interesting to him that is not actively working in those pursuits anymore. And I love me a physical book. And so Lydia has book blanks. You can get the advantage through the help of an inker of a physical book. And the nice thing about the inker is that uninking happens too, because it's not really ink. It's sort of like what we read about when e-ink watches and those sorts of things, the Pebble watch and the Kindle, the e-ink technology, and people saying, in the future, we are going to get you're just going to come up to a machine and you're going to get your daily newspaper and you're going to be able to use the paper again and again and again.
Yeah.
By the time of Lydia, that is reality. All right. So I'm going to have book blanks. You don't need many of them. How many books are you reading at one time? You want to, maybe, if you're me, 10.
Yeah.
So there's that. And now, this is the thing that's a little different, and it's called Get Goods. So, and these are the pink ones. So when Jenna and Malcolm are standing outside the shop before they go in, they can see that the 3 members of the Watt family in there are juggling.
Yeah.
And Malcolm comments, they do know how to demo the merchandise. And when Reggie says, you should, welcome Jenna, blah, 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 let our Zettelcast man Ronnie get you outfitted. And she follows Ronnie to a counter. Jenna follows Ronnie, who darts in back of the counter, flinging his floppy jester cap onto a hook. He arranges his 3 juggling balls in a box open for display, labeled, Get Good at Juggling. Ronnie grins at Jenna. We got these in last week. Great fun. I think it'll be my perfect break from effigy study. Oh, you're in too. I didn't check the roster yet. Yep, never miss it. He reaches under the counter and pulls out a softcover notebook in a box about 7 inches wide, 5 high, 18 deep. I got good at hacky sack for last year's. He pulls out a second box, a bit narrower and shorter. This is my final year of eligibility. I'll probably volunteer next year as an advisor, etc. All right. More on these get goods. Pardon me, we'll find the page. Okay, the next page. They've been talking about your stuff. I'm glad. Back to your ZK. He picks up the pen that comes with the kit and indicates a symbol on the side. This maker has a tie-in with Get Good at longhand. He hands the pen to Jenna, who link snaps the symbol and watches the brief promo. I never was great at it in school, she said. Not that I tried very hard. Longhand is a quick train, just a few muscle groups, Ronnie says. I've tested it. The haptics lead you into an easy, relaxed grip and flowing motion. Quick wean off, too. He looks into Jenna's face. Please excuse my jargon. Have you trained much with get goods? Some, but not since middle school it was, she said. I won't say good, but okay at jump rope. Now that might be a good mental break for me. I'll fish it out when I get home. Middle school, hey? Ronnie smiles. Any body changes since your last haptic scan? At her return blush, he nods toward the front of the store. You can refresh it on the way out. And then a little later, so Ronnie, Jenna says, Willie moves back around opposite her. How does get good at juggling handle veracity? Oh boy, good question. I haven't tested, so you get to witness my maiden. He pulls the 3 balls from the display box and begins to toss. This pattern is called Cascade, a simple starter pattern. The trainer's helping me. His eyes and hands dance and the balls fly up and over at an even height. I'm off trainer now, he says, and the cascade continues. Okay, trainer's back on. Here's columns, trickier. 2 balls move in parallel, straight above his right and left hands. The ball in the middle alternates like a piston with the other 2. Jenna watches as the pattern gets smoother and smoother in Ronnie's hands. Are you all on your own now? Yes, I am. Ronnie's avatar in the Yi strobes red, and a loud, harsh version of his Link voice exclaims, Not so. Ronnie drops the balls with an audible, Ew! Jenna laughs and turns to the others in the store. A little veracity test, folks. Don't mind us. She turns back to him. What did it make them feel like? He rubs and shakes his hands, allowing his cringe to fade. Slime balls. I'm sorry? She laughs. Yeah, not so. Call it professional curiosity. What's your jump rope do? The handles turn to worms. And your hacky? A sack of dung. She giggles. Stench very much included. Veracity and verisimilitude. And the last, when he nodded toward the front and says, you can refresh it on the way out. The little cart trundles behind them as Jenna goes through the exit first. She presses the haptic scan button and pauses at the threshold, feeling a quick tingle from head to toe.
Nice. I love the alarm. That nailed it. Perfect. No question.
Lions going on here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, yes.
Well, it's a little long to add my 1,000 words of the other Zettelcast and Fever Dream. So we can save that for another time. And if we have Roanoke subscribers, they'll be able to read it.
Mm.
So, do you have a card to
It
tell us?
does.
Oh, look at you. Well, where can we go to find out more about what's available on LiLLiPub? And yes, please go ahead.
You can come on over to lillypub.org. It's where we hang out when we're not here in YouTube land or not unpacking boxes.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.